Good morning, everyone. This is Miriam Guez. I'm the founder of Athlete Soul. I'll welcome you to our webinar today. We wanted to give it a few minutes to get started to make sure that everybody is on the screen. And then we'll start with Steve. So this is the first webinar from our educational webinar series. And I want to tell you a little bit more about Athlete Soul before we get started, in case some of you do not know about our organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was founded by former athlete last year. Our mission is to support athletes as they transition out of sport, but also raise awareness around the challenges of athletic retirement. We offer various services for athletes, from wellness and career development workshop to online event. And this event today is part of that series. We have educational webinars and industry insight events. We also have resources on our website that you can consult about transitioning from sport, as well as things to educate yourself about the challenges of athletic retirement. And we also offer transition coaching for athletes that are in the process of retiring. For today, just know that you are all, as participants, are muted during this webinar so that we can have a pleasurable experience and hear our speaker really well. If you have a question that you would like to ask, please use the chat window to do so. So if you go at the bottom of your screen, a little bit to the right, there's a little button that you can click on to open the chat window and submit your question. Evan Burke, who is our program director here at Athlete Soul, will record all your questions and we'll ask them to Steve at the end of this presentation. So the outline for the webinar will be 30-minute presentation from Steve, and then at the end of it, we'll follow by a 20 to 30-minute question and answer. And finally, we are recording this webinar. It will be available after the event. You'll receive a copy via email, and we'll also have it on our website. Note that this is a part of a series of free online events that we're hosting this month and ongoing after that. This specific event today on athlete personal branding will be followed by a second one later on. We do not have a date for it, but keep your eyes out for it. It will be on alternative sources of revenue for athletes. So stay tuned for this one. Then we have a series of other events for this month. And you have the dates here. April 10, Industry Insight on the sport business and sport industry. The 14th is Financial Literacy with Nicole Mindendorf, who is a financial advisor and wealth manager for Prosper Well. On the 24th is Industry Insight on entrepreneurship. And finally, on the 28th of April, Relationship Building in the Age of Zoom with Evan Burke. For more information about all our events, you can visit our website at athletesoul.space, and you can also send me an email if you have any questions. Now, for today, I want to talk to you a little bit about our speaker, Steve Bitter. He has 15 years of experience in digital marketing and communication, including time spent with 4 major sporting organizations, the Los Angeles Galaxy, the Real Salt Lake in the Major League Soccer, USA Cycling, and the USOPC. With USA Cycling, he did a social media campaign with over 12 million impressions, the largest social campaign for the organization. This helped the organization grow their social media account by 150%. And he also created USA Cycling first ever women ambassador roster. When he worked with the US Olympic Committee, he created the first internal social network for the USOPC, reaching out over 6,000 members with the US Olympic Committee. Finally, Steve last year started his own athlete branding consulting services focused on working with lower income athletes. He lives in Colorado Springs with his family, and we're gonna now turn it to him so that he can tell you more about athlete branding. We are very, very excited to having Steve today, and I hope that you really enjoy this webinar.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm super, super excited to spend a few minutes with you, share some of my insights I've learned through, like Miriam said, 15 years of digital marketing and communications. You know, some in the sports space. Outside of those organizations, I spent some time in some traditional roles with some more traditional industries as well. So I decided in the most recent years that I needed to boil this all down and distill all this information down into just kind of a very simple, usable way for athletes. And my passion is, I'll just share with you my story. It was probably, in fact, it was near the end of my time at USA Cycling. I was in a conversation with a mountain biker. And mountain bikers, I'm not sure how many cyclists we have on the line, but mountain bikers, as you know, they're kind of their own beast. They manage their own sponsors. They're their own mechanic a lot of times. They're their own manager. It's kind of a one-man show. And so a mountain biker came up to me and was like, "Hey, you know, I know you do all the social for USA Cycling. I know you do all the articles on the website. I know you work with all of the sponsors." He's like, "I'm getting ready to have conversations with my sponsors for next year, and hopefully have some conversations with some new sponsors. So if I text you, you know, if I message you once a month, can you just send me a quick report of all the times you've mentioned to me, either on social media or in the articles?" And at the time I was like, yeah, sure. I didn't think much of it. But as the more I thought about that, like the digital marketer inside me, I'd like exploded, because I realized, you know, a lot of athletes, you know, for all these high dollar athletes, there's 1,000 others that don't have agents, right? They don't have agencies, and they're doing this on their own, and they're kind of like, they may not even understand the opportunities that are in front of them. So I decided I needed to create a curriculum and create some bullet points for people that they could just kind of easily go off of, and manage their own social media in a really effective professional way, but two, see the world and see what it is they're doing through the eyes of their sponsor, or through the eyes of the VP of marketing or the brand owner that maybe is paying them. So this is where all of that stems from. So I'll get right into this, because I know we only have a few minutes together. Why can't I go forward? Okay, there we go. So today's topics, I'm going to be focusing on 4 kind of overarching topics, as you see here: sponsor priorities, defining your brand, social growth mechanics, and sponsorship value. So we're going to go right down the line one by one here. So beginning with sponsor priorities, I've come to understand that sponsors, and in athlete to sponsorship relationship, sponsors care primarily, I mean, they care about a number of things, but they primarily care about 2 things. And I want to give you guys just 10 seconds to see if you can guess, or if you can imagine what those 2 things might be. You know, is it how good of a person you are? Is it the things that you're standing up for? Is it the things that you believe in? Is it your results, right? Is it only because you have an Olympic medal, or you're a world champion, or you were on the Pan Am's roster? What do you think sponsors care about? I've come to understand that they care primarily about 2 things the most. The number one thing they care about is eyeballs. And when I say that, the goal of any product or company that sells a product or a service is to get in front of the most number of people possible. Plain and simple, end of story, right? They want to get their product out. They want to get the idea of their service out. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a swimsuit maker, or a bike manufacturer, or an insurance company, or a water bottle company. It doesn't matter. You want to get in front of the most number of people possible, preferably the most number of new people possible, because if you're just talking to the same people over and over, there's gonna you want to get in front of new people all the time. The second thing people care about, or I want to say your sponsors care about, or companies in general, is their own ROI, right? Their return on investment. They need to know that they're getting their money's worth, right? I often give the example to people, like if I, I've been a marketing manager, I've been a director of marketing, so I've run marketing budgets before, right? And so at the beginning of the week or the beginning of the month, I say, okay, this is how much money we have to spend this week or this month. If I know that I'm spending $500 and I'm getting 150 website views out of it, that's bad. Okay, that's not good. Yeah, that's not a good that's not a good spend of your $500, right? If you're spending $500 and you can turn that into 4,000 visits to your website, I would spend that over and over again, right? Because you need to know that you're getting your money's worth. That's what sponsors and brands have to ensure. This is a business. This is basically a math equation, right? So as an athlete, if you're going to engage in a sponsorship relationship, it's basically, are you worth spending money on, right? And what kind of value are they hoping to get from you? And I can tell you right now, it's not whether you win a medal. It's not whether you reach the podium. It's not some of these results-oriented things, okay? It goes back to the number one bullet point, eyeballs. They need eyeballs. So the athletes I talk to, I really try to like drill this in their heads. Like, you have to understand this relationship. And so usually what I do to kind of let it sink in a little bit is I kind of give my athletes a brief history lesson, which I'll do real quick, right? Because this equation, eyeballs, return on investment, it goes back 100 years. It goes back probably further than that, right? The first day that marketing was invented, that equation was born. So it's the same reason before internet, before electricity, like it's the reason newspapers sell ad space, right? It's the reason, and that's based off circulation, right? So I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We have the Colorado Springs Gazette. They're not able to charge as much for ad space as they are the Denver Post, because the Denver Metro has more people. Denver Post isn't able to charge as much ad space as the New York Times, right? And so on and so forth. Same reason that magazines sell the same type of ad space. Their ad space is based off subscription. TV and cable networks is based off of viewership. And this is an interesting one, because when you start to think of it that way, like it says here at the bottom of the screen, The Bachelor is not really a TV show. It's a marketing platform. Same with Friends. Same with all the other TV shows that we like, right? It's not about the show. It's about marketing dollars. Same thing with a sporting event. The major money in sports is in the TV rights, because there's commercial rights within those TV rights. It's not about the 10,000 people that buy tickets, right? It's a marketing platform. It's that event can attract eyeballs. And so that's how this equation works. It goes around and around. So it kind of helps you pose the question, and I've had some good conversations with athletes before, like, are you an athlete, right? Or are you just an athlete? I mean, obviously the answer is yes, right? I mean, you guys are athletes, you train, you compete. This is what you guys are dedicating your lives to. You guys are sacrificing it for. I see it day after day with all the athletes that I know. But from this perspective, you have to understand that you're something more. You're an athlete, but you're also a brand ambassador. Whether you hold the title of ambassador or not, you are a brand ambassador. You're part of that marketing department. You are an extension of them. And it's really, really important that you understand that. So going back, eyeballs, as an athlete with a social media following, athletes can satisfy the eyeballs with a social media following or influence, right? You can provide a sponsor or a brand with new eyeballs, with a new audience. That's what they're looking for, new audiences and new communities to engage with. That's what you can provide for them. The next thing, their ROI. And this is where I kind of have to explain, you need to deliver value for whatever it is you're getting. You may be only getting product, right? That the bar company may only be sending you month supplies every 4 weeks. It may be monetary like a monetary exchange. They may be giving you $1,000 for the year. Whatever it is, you have to be able to try to provide more value than what they're giving you. Otherwise, if it's an equal trade, if you're giving them one thing and they're giving you equal product or service in return, that's break even. In the business world, you don't want to break even, right? Ask Miriam, ask Evan. Like, you don't want to break even. You have to try to get more for what your money's worth. So as an athlete, you have to try to deliver more value. So going into the second part of this, let's define your brand. I want to run you guys through an exercise real quick. It should take about 30 seconds. I want you to think of 1 to 2 topics that you think you know the most about. And when I say that, if you're an athlete, your sport is going to be one. Okay, that's automatically number one. And so I want you to try to think of something else that you think or that you are really expert on. I mean, I know athletes that were practicing attorneys before they really got into competition, or they're nurses, or you know, they know a whole lot about certain topics, and they can speak to that topic better than the average person, right? They know technical details, they know the history of whatever it is that interest is, right? So aside or in addition to your sport, what's 1 or 2 more things that you know a whole lot about, right? And then one thing that you just like, right? So have that in mind. Is it movies? Is it baking? Is it fly fishing? Is it painting? Is it drawing? I mean, is it fixing up old cars? You know, you may not be the expert, but you like it. You know, you're not the expert, but it's something you enjoy every now and then when you have some free time. So what I do at the beginning of with all of the athletes I ever work with is these are like the first 2 questions I ask them, right? And I have a whole battery of like 15, 20 questions, but these are the first 2 questions because everything else is predicated upon the answers to these 2 questions. What are you super, super, super good at? What do you know the most about? And what are the things that you just really like to do? You know, that you could have a conversation, not know much about it, but you could enjoy a conversation about that topic. So whether you have those written down or in your head, keep those 2 in mind, okay? The things that you know the most about are what I call them your primary topics, right? And again, it's your sport because you're a professional. You are on the world championship roster. Maybe you've competed in the Olympics. Maybe you've been competing at a high level in that sport for the last 4 or 5 years. So people know, like, oh, you know, that guy, he's a professional cyclist. If I have a question about cycling, that guy probably has the answer, right? Or if I have a question about competitive swimming, that girl probably knows the answer, right? Because they're a competitive international swimmer, right? Those are your primary topics. Secondary topics is the hobbies and interests, okay? And the reason I have athletes go through this exercise is because when it comes to brand, an athlete brand, you need to be able to convey that externally, right? You need to be able to verbalize who you are, what you're about, what your values are, what your interests are. Because a lot of athletes I talk to, I ask them, you know, like what's, you know, what kind of stuff do you like, and what's your brand? And sometimes I get like blank stares, right? And I know it's up there, like I know it's in their head. They just can't get it out. They just can't get it out into the outside world. So writing it down is the best thing you can do, right? What do you know the most about? What are your other hobbies and interests? And the reason I divide them up that way is because in primary topics, whenever you talk about that topic, you are the expert. People will always see you as the expert, right? They're going to assume that you have all the answers. Whether you do or not is one thing, but they're always going to have that assumption that you know the most about that, right? Within that industry, because you reside at such a high level of understanding, when you converse with others, you're conversing with peers, right? You're conversing with other people who know the same amount as you do, right? It's important to understand that you have that level of authority, which is the last point here. You are the authority source. If there are questions regarding that, you will have the answers. Whereas secondary topics, you have to understand that you're the rookie, right? You're the learner. You don't have all the answers. It's just something that you like. you know you're not very good at it. And from a point of conversation, you're conversing with experts, right? So you kind of have to own the fact that you don't know the most in the room, right? One thing I tend to joke with some athletes that I work with is I always flash up a picture of LeBron. I say, look, unless you're this guy right here, or unless you are like your last name is Ledecky or Phelps, or some of these like very notable people, you have to do your social media just like the rest of us, one by one, follower by follower, inch by inch, mile by mile, right? Some of these people, as soon as they create an account, before they posted their first photo, they have like 250,000 followers, like in the first couple hours, right? Most athletes are not in that boat, and I understand that. I know some of you, I was looking last night, like I know some of you have 1,200 followers on Instagram, 1,600 followers on Instagram, 10,000 followers. That's still a lot. Like, believe it or not, that's still quite a following, and you can do a lot with that. So going into social growth mechanics, like I said, one by one, inch by inch. The best thing I can teach you, the best thing I can share with you as far as how to grow your social and how to grow your audience is consistency, consistency, consistency. I try to encourage the athletes I work with to schedule out the best they can, right? And I had a conversation with about this with somebody the other day that, when you're working a corporate social media account, or when I was working the USA Cycling Instagram account or the Twitter account or the Facebook page, and I would come out with a tweet or an Instagram post on a random Thursday afternoon, it wasn't because I thought of that Thursday morning or Thursday over lunch. It was because we talked about that post probably the week before, probably 2 weeks before, in some 2-hour long planning meeting, and from the corporate side, from the professional side, social media is very strategic. It's very strategic, and it's very well thought out. And so the best thing you can do is schedule your posts out. That way you stick to the plan, and that way you have a plan. This is what I'm putting out today. This is what I'm putting out this morning, after lunch, tomorrow, the next day. This is what I'm putting out tomorrow night. I know on Friday night I have a Q&A. I know Monday morning I have this. I have an Instagram takeover for these guys. Whatever it is, consistency, consistency, consistency. I heard someone say the other day, consistency is always the shortcut. And I couldn't agree with that more, right? That is like the sure, straight arrow way to get things done, is just to simply be consistent. So whenever I start talking to an athlete, one of the first things I'll do is I'll go to their Instagram account or their Twitter account, whatever other accounts they have, and I'll look at the last time they posted, right? And I was doing that last night, January 19th, October 18th, like last April, like that's not going to work. It needs to be much more consistent than that, obviously. Now, since you guys are here spending time with me, I wanted to share a couple like really good little secrets, that that I used to do, whether I was working in sport, or out of sport. Some really good little stuff. So you may want to grab a pencil and paper for this. But my first really good secret for you is, when you have time later today, go to google.com/alerts. Okay, this is totally free. It's been around for actually a lot of years. No one really knows about it unless you're like a total internet marketing geek guy like me. Google.com/alerts, and it will look like this, what you see on the left, right? You can create an alert. Has a couple suggestions for you. I wouldn't bother with that. You can create an alert about whatever you want, whatever phrase you want to track. You can create an alert about that. It might be your name. It might be your sponsor's name. It might be your NGB. It might be your team name. You can do literally whatever you want, right? So the example I have, I actually created this slide about 6 months ago, but for the presentation I was giving then, I did Simone Biles, right? The gymnast. So I put in Simone Biles, and it gives you a preview of what your alert's going to be. And at the time, I don't remember what month this was. It was like July or August, but it gives me what this does it gives you a complete readout of every time that phrase that you're tracking. It gives you a readout of every time that phrase is mentioned on the written internet without directly being mentioned, right? So outside of social media, right? Because unless someone tags at Steve Bitter, I have no idea. Some article could be talking about me halfway across the world and I wouldn't even know it. Google Alerts takes care of that, right? So you can track a whole lot of things. So here you have Simone Biles. She was mentioned in a press release from VYPE. She was mentioned in a news article from the Union of Grass Valley, in a Telegraph UK article that day, and also a Philadelphia Sunday Sun article. So those are mentions that Simone got in, over the last probably 24 hours before that, 24 to 48 hours before that, that she would otherwise never know about, because unless the Philadelphia Sun tagged her in their article, which they probably didn't, and there's no way for her to know that, she would never know, right? So when you create an alert, you can create how often it is, whether you get it once a day, once a week, once a month. You can get it to as many emails as you like. I would do it like, I don't know, at least once a week or once a month. If you're an athlete, I would do your name, like standard. I would do your name and I would do your sponsors at least, right? Because as you're traveling, I mean, I know we're not traveling right now, but as we get back into traveling and competition and the World Cup season and the World Championships and we start getting into competition, there's going to be local write-ups in the cities that you compete in. And if you happen to make a mention in the newspaper in one of those local cities or in that local market or that demographic, you want to know about that. And the reason I say that is you want to be able to tally up those numbers over time, whether it's by the month or by the year, right? Because it's easy to say, oh, I have, at the end of the year, I have this many followers on my Instagram and I got this many likes. But you can also say, and I was mentioned in press and media, 15 times this year. And what you do is you go to those newspapers, you go to the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, you go and somewhere on their site, they're going to have the circulation numbers that I referred to earlier. They're going to have that because it's public knowledge. And the circulation may be 1.5 million newspapers, right? So you can say, I was mentioned in this that has a circulation of 1.5 million people, right? You want to be able to start thinking in numbers. How do you quantify yourself? This is one super, super easy way of doing it. The next thing I want to talk about is a concept that I term surprise and delight, right? My wife used to work at Apple, and when she worked at the Apple store, this is a philosophy that they instilled in their employees. And it's basically, it empowers the employees to go the extra mile, take the extra step, go out of your way to get the job done, right? So one example of this, a lot of you may recognize who this is. It's Reggie Miller, longtime NBA professional, all-star. He's an Olympian from the '96 Atlanta team. Very recognizable guy. He calls the games on the Thursday night TNT broadcast. Real famous guy, right? Really super nice guy. Well, he has actually gotten into mountain biking a lot lately. He's gotten into some other ventures lately, and he's amassed quite a social media following outside of basketball. He's probably talking about his mountain bike, like probably at this point, probably more than basketball. But the reason I bring up this slide is because I mentioned that he does the Thursday night broadcast of TNT. Well, Friday morning, before he flies out from what city he broadcasts in, before he flies back out to Orange County to go home, he sits in the terminal, just like you see there, and he does these Instagram Live, these share videos, which I know all of you know about, right? Because like right now we're all inside, like I can't open up Instagram without 10 of them happening like all at one time. They're just like booming right now. So I know that you guys know what this is, but the beauty of the way he does it is that he does it every Friday morning. He doesn't just do it randomly. So everyone, like people get excited. Like there's times I've gotten excited to like wake up and like try to like get on Reggie's call, right? Every Friday morning, he'll sit in the terminal and let people come in and ask a question about basketball, about mountain biking, about, whatever it is that he has an interest in. and he'll talk to him for 2 or 3 minutes, end that call and bring someone else in, right? And on the third slide over, the point I'm trying to make is that, he has a really good social media following, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people, but he's taking the time to go one-on-one with people. And that rings with people. That's the kind of fire that you want to spread, is your ability to connect with individual people. So again, early and often, consistency. Now, the heart of everything I share with my athletes is about this next topic, right? Delivering sponsorship value. I cannot stress how important this is. I know some of you have your own individual sponsors. I know some of you don't. But if you compete for an NGB, I guarantee you that NGB has sponsors. So by nature of you competing at the level you do, I know that you're actually not very far away from sponsors, whether you have them directly or indirectly. Everyone in this, I know for a fact, if you're an athlete listening to this right now, you have sponsors, whether you know it or not, okay? Either directly or indirectly. The thing I would try to tell my athletes is when you are representing your sponsor, you need to take the time, and this is why a tweet takes a half hour, an hour, 2 hours to come up with, even though it's only 140 characters, right? You need to take the time to educate your audience, whether it's 10,000 people, 5,000 people, 800 people. You need to take the time to educate them. That means either speaking geek or talking techie, right? I didn't know who was going to be on this call, and so I didn't want to risk making a bad example out of anyone, because I understand the likelihood of someone knowing that person is pretty high. So I figured I would go ahead and make a bad example out of me. This is me at the top of Pikes Peak, which is here in Colorado Springs, one of the largest peaks here in Colorado. It's a 14er. And I took this selfie of me. I was dead tired. I don't know how I took that picture, to be honest. But I see this all the time. So I've worked, like Miriam said, I worked in cycling. So I know a whole lot of cyclists. And the things that they talk about the most when they mention their sponsors is going to be their drink product, their bar product, their glasses, their helmet, and their bike. Those are like the 5 or 6 things that they talk about over and over and over, right? And I tell them all the time, like, man, you guys drive me bonkers, because when you tag Oakley and all you say is, I was out today, loved riding my Oakleys, and that's all you say, or you just simply tag them or throw up like the Oakley hashtag, that literally teaches your followers nothing about Oakley, right? And in the eyes of Oakley, you've probably done your job. They probably said, hey, Steve, can you mention us? Can you use our Oakley hashtag this week? And you say, okay, yeah, yeah, that's fine. So you do that and you think your job is done. But there's an opportunity for you. This is where it goes back to that slide, delivering more value than what that brand is even expecting, right? So I tell athletes all the time, look, the least you can do, if you're talking about your Oakleys, the least you can do is go to oakley.com, go find the lenses that you're riding in, that you're training in, because they have like 50 lenses, right? Go to that product page, click on the features tab, and it pretty much like gives you all the features. Pick 2 or 3, copy and paste, delete the little dot bullet points so at least like resembles spoken English, and use that and take an opportunity to just teach your followers something about those lenses. Or you can teach something without doing that. Why do you use those lenses? Why not those other ones? Why do you use those lenses in the sun as opposed to these other lenses in the shade? Are they the lenses that you race in? Are they the lenses that you train in? Why? Teach people. The one there, the bullet points down there in the middle where it says Prism Trail Torch, that's from a different part of the same page. I screenshotted it. Talk about the fact that it has the 35% light transmission rating. Talk about that the contrast of your vision will be increased greatly as opposed to not being increased, right? People want to understand that. And so at the end of the day, in this relationship of being a sponsored athlete or wanting to be a sponsored athlete, sponsor metrics are more important than your metrics, right? And I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the way it is. This is about them. This is about fulfilling those two priorities that we talked about earlier, getting them eyeballs and getting them a return on their investment. So I always say, you know, it's easy for an athlete, or for a lot of people really, just influencers that you see out there, to just focus on likes, on shares. This is how many comments my post got. But in the world of digital marketing, there's like dozens of metrics that you are tracking at any given time. And so I want to share some of those real quick, because they're really important. You know, what if you can't deliver likes, what else can you deliver, right? It may be YouTube views. Maybe that brand has a YouTube channel with a bunch of videos on it. Maybe it's website visits, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe there's a meet and greet, a signing session, or some sort of event. Maybe that they're going to be have a table at some expo, and maybe you're not even going to be at that expo with them, but you know that they're going to have a table at the expo. What can you do to help push some foot traffic past their table, right? In-person visits. Downloads. Maybe that company has a free download, a free guide, or a free white paper. You know, lots of companies do. You know, maybe you can try to push downloads for them, or email capture. Maybe you can help increase their email list by 3%, which for some email lists, I mean, I would gladly pay a lot of money to increase by 3%. Depends on how big the list is, right? But if you can be a part of these other metrics that are out there, again, that's delivering a whole lot more value than what they're delivering you, and that is going to be in your favor. I always say that happy sponsors make the world go round. That's plain and simple, and that goes back to the equations that we talked about in the beginning. Happy sponsors make all this possible, right? They like literally pay for the party, and that's why, you know, I know a lot of you compete in the Olympic space, which I'm very familiar with. I have friends in almost every NGB out there. That's why some NGBs have very small staffs and have no broadcasting rights or broadcasting agreement, and why other NGBs have Phillips 66 and Nike and United and Delta and Toyota and all these other ones, because it's the audience that NGB can provide, right? So always understand that sponsors make this all possible. So make your sponsors happy. I think we're out of time for the presentation. I know we're going to get to Q&A. So just want to encourage you guys. First of all, thank you for being here. I know there's a lot to, even though we're all stuck inside, there's a lot to do. So I want to thank you for being here, for taking the time out of your day, for listening. You can follow me on any of the social platforms. I just simply use my name @Steve Bitter. I have a YouTube channel, and I have, I don't know, probably half a dozen, 6 or 7 YouTube videos up there now, where I just share kind of quick tips, and whether it's digital marketing related or brand related or sponsorship related. And then if you would like to know more, you can visit my website, stevebitterbranding.com, where if you're interested in more, I actually have a course that you can register for, and I run you through. It's about a 4-hour workshop with about 2 months of follow-up, to really like go one-on-one, like really deep dive with you one-on-one on like how to really execute and blow up your social media. So thanks again, and I think it's time for some questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate it. Some really great information. We've got a couple of questions coming in, and I think, Andrea, if you wouldn't mind just sharing kind of your questions that you're wanting to ask, but I have one that's kind of similar. Andrea is curious about calling attention to sponsors and how athletes can do that. So when we're talking about attracting a sponsor for these athletes, like, is there a specific person in the company that they should be trying to reach out to? You know, when we're talking about like a sponsorship opportunity in a company that has 500, however many employees, who are we specifically trying to reach out to?
That's a good question. I would say start at the marketing department, right? And it's kind of like looking for a job, right? I've told athletes, find the highest level you can and just go for it, right? Because you might get a response. And I've had athletes get responses from finding out who the VP of marketing is for that company, or who the chief is, right? And if you're able to like literally stalk them out, LinkedIn, sometimes I just Google somebody. I Google the name of the company. If I know it's that person's name, and then I'll put in email and I'll hit search. And I just hope that somewhere in the search results, some article or some press release or somewhere is going to have that person's email, and just email them. But and in addition to that, I mean, if you can also find like the marketing manager or the digital marketing strategist, you just want to get some communication going, and people are more than happy to funnel it where they need to. Like if you talk to the strategist and they know that they're not the decision maker, they're going to funnel it upstairs, right? They're going to send it up to the powers that be. But with that, I would say, know exactly what you want, know exactly what you're asking for. I would say for the first communication, simply ask for a conversation. Don't lead with what you're proposing. Don't lead with all of your numbers. Don't lead with your portfolio or whatever. Just lead with, hey, I'm an athlete. I compete in this sport, and you could throw a couple highlights out there. I was competing in the World Championships last year, or I was 8th at Olympic trials. Whatever it is, so that way they have some understanding. Like, okay, you're someone, right? You're someone who's good at this sport. Simply ask for a conversation. It might be a 20-minute phone conversation. If you're in their same city, hey, can you meet for coffee? I would love to talk to you about an opportunity or some opportunities. That would be your first step, is simply get a conversation.
Yes, and I'm going to plug the April 28th networking in the age of Zoom for everybody that's listening. But I 100% agree with you, Steve. I think this particularly is a great time to be reaching out to people over LinkedIn and over email. And you said ask for a 15-minute coffee. I think that's perfect. And you could do that now. People don't even have to leave their home. So you can just really kind of work around their schedule and do your best to get in front of them. And I love it. And just to add to that, I think persistence is also key in this, because you're going to be reaching out to a lot of people in marketing departments, and you're probably not going to get a ton of feedback right off the bat. And so you might find out that you have to send 10, 20 emails to get 2 or 3 responses, which is perfectly fine. You're looking for those people that are going to respond to you. So I love that advice of just kind of like finding the right types of people in marketing and asking specifically for their advice on how you as an athlete can either gain sponsorship opportunities, or what does that process even look like before you actually ask for the actual sponsorship opportunity.
Right.
Very practical. I love that.
Yeah. And I will say, so I mentioned the marketing department. Some companies have sponsorship partner departments, and that's exactly what you want. Like, I know that a lot of NGBs have them, right? Like when it says partnership marketing or sponsorship marketing, those are the ones that are dealing directly with the partners. So that would actually be ideal. If someone has a title of partnerships in their title somewhere, that's exactly what you want.
Love it. Okay, partnerships. That's great. Danielle is asking, how do we reach more people outside of our own sport and branch out into other communities that may not be as aware of the sports that they participate in?
2 words: secondary topics, right? That's going all the way back to the beginning of the hour. You have your primary topics, you have your secondary topics. And this is where I try to explain, as an athlete, you have to lean into the fact that you're a professional, high competing athlete. Lean into that, like own it, right? When people, I know a cyclist, and he's really into painting, right? But really into it. Like, he could tell you like the bristle count. He deals only in like oils and watercolors, and he like the stitch count of the can. I mean, he gets like super, super geeky, right? Like, his involvement in the painting arts community is unbelievable, right? But people love it because he's a pro cyclist. And so for that community, whether it's a fly fishing community, a painting community, a baking community, or whatever it is, it like the fact that you come in and say, hey, you kind of put it out there. Hey, I'm a professional athlete. I would love to know more about this. Or, hey, I compete here. But I was wondering, what kind of, what kind of recipes are you using lately? Like whatever it is, the fact that you're a pro athlete, I'm telling you, people perk up. Don't ever underestimate the fact that you're a pro elite level athlete. People love it, right? And the fact that you're like going to them about advice, or hey, like, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? Or where's the best place to grab a burger in this city? Like the fact that you're doing that, that's why those secondary topics are so important, because those are the communities that you're going to get involved with. And the reason I have you write them down is because, I don't want you talking about something that you're not interested in. If you're not interested in tech, like tech gadgets, I don't have an interest in talking to people who are super interested about tech gadgets, right? But that's for other people. So get it down. Write as many secondary topics as you can, but just make sure that you're interested in them, and then go find those conversations. You can find those conversations in hashtags. You can find those conversations by doing searches within social media, but go find those conversations, like other people's posts, comment on them, follow people, find ways to, it's just like striking up a conversation with someone at a restaurant or out in public.
Yes.
Like, find something in common and talk to them,
Yes. And you're talking about starting conversations. One of the questions that just came in is like, if you're maybe just starting out on social media, or maybe a little shy and timid, like what are some things that you can do to kind of like up your engagement or up your reach, your social media game, for lack of a better term? And I guess that's one of the things that you can do as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're like timid or nervous, they don't know that. It's like being on the starting line, right? Like, you think you're nervous? Everyone's nervous, right? Like, don't ever think that people aren't nervous, but it's easy. You can just hide behind your phone, hide behind your screen. They don't, like, start a conversation, like something, share it, they don't know that it takes you 20 minutes to come up with a comment because you think it's going to sound all silly. Like, they don't know that, like, don't just assume that, work off the assumption that they don't know that. Just strike up conversations with people.
Yeah. And I think, like, if you're not comfortable posting a bunch of pictures on Instagram, or you don't feel comfortable going live on Instagram or something, as an example, these are ways that you can kind of get around that, and you're still engaging with people. You're still kind of getting your name out there, but you don't have to be in front of the camera. And maybe that's something you can kind of like ease into, for sure.
Yeah. And people ask me, like, should I do this, or should I do that, or should I come up with a YouTube channel? I say, look, like, you do what's comfortable. Don't get out of your comfort zone. If you love talking, but you don't think you're good on camera, start a podcast, right? If you don't like the way your voice sounds, start blogging, right? If you don't think you're a good writer, go to YouTube, like, find what it is you're comfortable at.
Totally. Colin is asking about, what is the usual timetable for a sponsorship proposal to go through?
Oh man, that depends. Depends on who's in that other office and how fast they work.
Just give us a rough timetable.
That will always, okay. I'll say this: it's never fast.
Okay.
Right? If it's fast, then like that's the exception. That's rare. Just know that. So we're in April of 2020. I mean, let's say the economy is normal right now. Let's say we're not going through all this chaos. In a normal world, to start conversations with companies for 2021, which is now an Olympic year, you would want to start having those conversations like summertime, because they're going to have their budget locked up and approved, whether it's by the owner, by the board, by whoever. They need to have their budget locked up well before the new year, like well before January 1. So you want to, I mean, we're in April, you would want to start even kind of feeling it out now.
Got it.
Because it takes a while.
Similar to what you said before too, where, you know, this is a good time to be reaching out and asking for advice, and maybe like just getting a little bit of insight into what that process looks like in kind of your outreach to people. And maybe that's a good way too, to like start those conversations and maybe get a better idea from them as to what's really going on in that world. Yeah.
I mean, make conversations now. You know, you may not talk about sponsorship for 2021, but make conversations, make friends, you know.
Okay.
Like you want to, if they know who you are before that conversation happens, that's 100 times better than, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm an athlete, and I want to talk about sponsorship. You know, like you want to create some familiarity first.
6 months is not out of the ordinary for something like this to take place.
No.
Okay,
no.
Cool. Calvin's asking about social media metrics. So once you do find out your social media metrics, whatever that is, I have 1,200 followers, 1,600 followers. How do I then quantify that worth to sponsorship negotiations? He's saying like 1 like equals $1. I'm sure it's not like that, but like, how do you kind of do that in negotiation? Is it based on like the engagement you get, or is it kind of all predetermined, and just any tips that you can give the athletes on any type of sponsorship negotiations?
There's actually a few different ways to look at that. One is going to be like what you're providing versus what they're doing for themselves, right? I like, for example, I understand there's a lot of synchronized swimmers in the room, right? I was on the synchronized website, the USA website, a little bit ago last night, and of your girls' sponsors, there's some that have, of those sponsors, there's a couple sponsors that their Instagram following is like 1,200 followers, right? You have 1,400, like you could literally more than double their audience, right? If you have 10,000, I don't know, it's like 5 times, right? I don't know what that is. It just depends on what you're able to provide for maybe what it is they're already getting. Maybe they have other ambassadors that post once a week, right? Maybe you can post twice a week. Maybe their ambassador posts once a month. Maybe you post 4 times a month. And so it's kind of like, what are your metrics in relation to maybe what's already being done? But one thing I would ask, and I've told athletes this straight out, call up whoever it is you're working with, like your contact, the marketing manager or the brand, the sponsorship, you know, whoever it is, and ask them, like, have that raw conversation with those people. Hey, what do you want? You know, what are you looking for this month? You know, their businesses may be running on some sort of a product cycle or seasonal cycle. Do you want YouTube videos? Do you have a new video you're trying to push to? You know, I encourage athletes all the time, just ask what it is that they want. Do they want shares? Do they care about likes? Like maybe they don't even care, you know, some others like that's maybe all they care about. And ask, I mean, if you really want to go deep and techie, like there's some companies that have a formula. It's maybe some internal formula. So they get the metrics every month, they plug it in, they do the likes here, they do the website visits there, they do like the dollar spend and the math, blah, blah, blah. And so, okay, what's gonna move that algorithm? What's gonna move that math problem, right? When I was at cycling, we had VW, we had Volkswagen, that was our big sponsor. And we found out that they actually were not including our social media in their marketing metrics back in Germany, back in like Munich or wherever they're like headquartered. And we're like, well, can you do that? And so they went back and added our metrics into their like marketing formula. And we were like exceeding their formula standard by like 3-fold, right? So have a conversation, ask what it is they want. As far as like dollar for dollar, this is what this values. Everyone's different, right? I've worked for business owners outside of sport that all they care about is website visits. That's like literally all they care about, right? And so if you're working with a company like that, who cares about likes? Who cares about share? I mean, could you deliver it? Sure, right? But knowing that they care the most about one thing, it's going to help you be in the position to deliver on it, right? Your posts are going to mean more about, hey, go visit their website, check out this new product, check out the new colors they came out this month, right? Like, if you know what it is they want, it's a whole lot easier.
Yeah, this is really great. Andrea was asking about, she sometimes receives specific products from companies and they don't give her any type of direction. She doesn't have like any type of partnership with them, and she was asking, like, what can she do, or do they want her to post more about that product? And I think, like, piggybacking on the answer to your last question, the answer is call them up and ask them and reach out to them and say, hey, I keep getting this beef jerky from you. Are you wanting me to post? Are you wanting to discuss a sponsorship opportunity? Because I would love to have that discussion.
Right.
And I think, like you're saying, just reaching out to them and asking is the key to all of this.
Yeah, like they're businesses, right? They have to make money. So if you ask them, they will have an answer. They know what they want. They just may not always share it.
Got it. And then I think, some of the athletes in here are from, I guess, what you would call smaller sports, lower visibility sports. So Sarah's asking about not getting a lot of visibility, and kind of like, how can they convince a sponsor to invest with them when they don't have the huge number of eyeballs or audience to promote, whatever it is, 50,000 views every time they go live on Instagram? What are some of the things some of those lower visibility sports can do to convince a sponsor?
That's a good question. I see that a ton, right? The best thing you can do, and again, like inch by inch, mile by mile, like follower by follower, right? Like this is like a long game. Like social media marketing in general is long-term stuff. And so you look at yourself, you may only have a couple hundred followers or 50 followers right now, but what could you do in 6 months, right? What could you do in a year if you really applied yourself? Maybe you could get up to 5,000 followers. And like I said before, like 5,000 followers is a lot. And if you know what to do with it, there's a saying in marketing, in digital marketing, and in like influencer and brand management, that you would rather have 1,000 followers who engage than 100,000 followers that do nothing, right? So how can you get the most out of what you have, even if it's like relatively small, right? And again, look for ways to just provide value, right? They may say, hey, can you be sure to post up for us this month, right? And you say, okay, I can do that, but why don't we also, hey, I'm free next Wednesday. Can I do like a 30-minute Facebook Live video, and can I feature your product as if like it's presenting like the 30-minute Facebook Live, right? Just pitch it like that, right? Think of ways to like represent your sponsors. And again, like the numbers may not be super small, and as far as like your following and your reach, again, going back to like, that's why those first two things are so important, your primary topics and your secondary topics. That's how you grow. That's how you grow. The more things that you find interesting and to talk about, that's how your audience grows. I literally know 5-time Olympic gold medal winning people that don't have any sponsors, and they have like 250,000 followers, right? And their sponsorship roster is terrible. They don't have any sponsors. And I know people who have like never sniffed a podium, like never sniffed an elite podium, and they have 25,000 followers and like legit sponsors like Red Bull and like really, really good sponsors, because they engage, right? They do the most with what they have. Maybe they're good on camera. Maybe they are just willing to just get out there and be out in the public, right? So it's all kind of like, it's everything at once, right? Do what you can to grow your audience and deliver the most value possible.
Great. And you use a specific example there, and I'm just curious, like if I have 2,000 followers and I'm going to approach a brand and say, hey, I'm going to do this Wednesday night Facebook Live, and I want to sponsor your product, like what is the ask for the athlete? Like, do you say like, hey, will you give me $100 for every Wednesday Facebook Live I do? Or like, what would the ask be for some of these athletes that have, you know, a legitimate following in that 1,000 to 5,000 range? But like, how would you start that negotiation, or what would you go to those sponsors with a proposal?
As far as that, I have had a couple of those conversations with athletes before. I've said one of two things really. If you think you have a significant following, if you have over 15, I kind of throw it out there arbitrarily. If you have over 15,000 people, and I know some people in the room don't, if you have a significant or some following, that's a conversation to have. I don't know what the right number would be, you know. It's kind of like, it's kind of like by feel, like what do you feel right asking? Is it $100? Is it $25 and it pays for dinner like that night, right? But I've also encouraged people to just like bite the bullet and do it for free and just do it for experience, right? Because like it may not pan out for you then, but you know, they say, hey, you know what, that person's really willing to like help us out. They go above and beyond, you know, and so if anything else, it improves your bargaining power for down the road, at least, right? It may or may not lead to a renewal or an increase with that sponsor. Maybe it leads to something else with a different sponsor. Hey, I did this for this company. I did it every Wednesday night. You know, that I started out with this many viewers, and recently I've been having 1,500 viewers, whatever, you know, whatever it is. That may not be much of a conversation for that sponsor, but for a new sponsor, that may be like a revelation, right? So you just have to do things almost in good faith sometimes that it's going to either work out for that sponsor or work out for a different sponsor.
Got it. And I think this will be our last question. And Steve, I appreciate you staying a couple extra minutes with us and getting everybody's question. You know, there's been a question about, you know, working with specific brands that these athletes are interested in working with, and like, how do they access those brands, especially higher level brands? Somebody was also asking about like, if you're interested in working with a specific brand or a targeted sponsor, would it help to get to know people that are already working with that company? And I think they're kind of like one and the same, where it's just kind of like, what are the things that you can do to kind of access those targeted companies? Andrea, I think, used Apple here as an example. That's, you know, love aiming high. And like, you know, whether it's like an Apple, or maybe it's like a local restaurant or like a local company in the cities that they live in, like what are some of the things that they can do to access those sponsors?
Yeah. So basically I kind of explain it like this to a lot of athletes, right? Like, would we love Pepsi to come crashing through your door and sign a multi-year? Like, for sure, right? Like, is that the goal? Yeah. But in all reality, like, to be totally objective, like, what's the possibility of that? Like, not as high as we probably think, right? You know, when you see the athletes that are sponsored by Toyota or from any of the Olympic sponsors, there's someone, I sat next to him, there's someone at the office who determines that. Like, the athlete didn't say, oh, hey, can I be sponsored by Toyota for next year? No, like, that guy in the office said, hey, Toyota, we should sponsor that guy. And so Toyota's like, sure. So I would say it's a lot easier to go after smaller relationships than it is big ones. And I know it's like, it's fun and it's dynamic and it's exciting to say, oh, I'm sponsored by Nike, I'm sponsored by Pepsi, I'm sponsored by, you know, Coors Light, you know, whatever it is. But like, at this level, like if you can get a sponsorship and it's like you know, $2,500 a year, maybe that pays for like half your food, right? So let's get the other half paid for, right? Maybe it pays for your PT. Maybe it pays for some travel expenses. I know athletes that had to pay their own way to go to world championships, right? To compete for Team USA, like for their NGB, like pay their own flight, pay their own boarding, you know?
Right.
So maybe it doesn't like set you up, but maybe it pays for something. So, and as far as like, because there's obviously like your city is full of companies out there, you know, what are your values? What are some of the products you use? You know, are there companies out there that you feel align with who you are, right? Are there companies that are good on social media? Like if they're not good on social media or they don't post much, like don't go after them. Doesn't matter if they're your favorite coffee company in the world. If they don't do much, don't go after them, because that's obviously not what they care about, right? So it's just, you have to keep your eyes open, you know. For the cyclists in the room, I say when you're on a group ride, look at the backs of the jerseys of everybody that you're riding with, because they're like, it's like a NASCAR. It's like there's like 10 different companies that sponsor whoever's wearing that jersey. Like that insurance guy is interested in cycling. That you know, design firm is interested in cycling. That's like an easy conversation. Hey, I saw you sponsor the local cycling club. I was wondering if you would be, you know, consider like a more one-on-one relationship, you know. Keep your eyes open when you guys go to events. Keep your eyes open as far as who's sponsoring that event. And I mean, there's a lot more opportunities out there than I think people realize.
Love that. Yeah, and that's a really good point there at the end, which is if you're going to these competitions, who are the companies that you're seeing in this world? If it's team handball, who are the sponsors that are present at the events? Those are probably really great people to start with in terms of your outreach.
Yeah, and if you end up going to like a Jazz game or a Lakers game, I tell you, like, don't watch the game. Look around the stadium. Look around. I mean, this is like the Lakers, right? Look around the stadium and see all the billboards that are like up there, and who's sponsoring the halftime, whatever. And like, remember that, jot that down, because if they're willing to, or like the AAA minor league team in your you know, who's sponsoring the boards around like the infield, right? If they're willing to sponsor like a minor league team, they'd probably be up for having a conversation with you, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, Steve, thank you very much. I'm going to pass it over to Miriam for our conclusion.
Thank you, guys. First of all, I wanted to thank you, Steve, for doing the webinar today. Lots of takeaways from what you presented. And thank you, Evan, for leading the questions. We're going to follow up with all of the information from the event. If you have additional questions that you want to ask us, feel free to send them to me by email. We'll keep the conversation going. We'll probably have some back and forth either on our website or on our social media. So keep the information going too. And we're always looking for more topics for our webinar. So if there are certain things that you want to see covered, please feel free to email me as well. Thanks again, Steve, Evan, and to all of you guys out there, stay safe and healthy, and hopefully active at home. Thanks.